Yes, you read that title correctly. We're about to play a Deadmau5 drinking game where we have to drink every time Deadmau5 swears. Can't believe I'm doing this, but I've posted a bunch of Deadmau5 streams thus far on this channel. And on one of them, where he talks about how he made it as a musician, producer, and DJ, a bunch of the comments said, fun drinking game, drink anytime he swears. So we're about to do just that. I'm also going to give some commentary and everything. Also, as a quick side note, every time I've seen Deadmau5 perform, he only drinks Coronas. And then I Googled like Deadmau5's favorite beer or whatever. And on Reddit, everyone kind of said the same thing. Now, before I begin, post in the comments, what do you think? How long do you think it's going to take for him to swear and for me to have to drink? So let's do it.
Besides making music, how would you recommend promoting independently? Yeah, that's the thing too. Uh, Getting started as an independent artist. I mean, I could fucking tell you all about.
Okay. So that was 16 seconds in. I'm gonna do like mini sips because I got a 6 pack of Corona, but I genuinely don't know if 6 was enough, and I don't want to get like crazy on this video because I am gonna be giving some commentary and everything too, like I said. But
It. I was exactly fucking that. I wasn't scooped up by Tiesto and piggybacked onto the stage of Ultra, and all of a sudden I'm a fucking superstar. You know what I mean? Like you got to do some work. Shit, I say this to a lot of guys. Maybe I might have said it in some previous streams or something like that, and I know I might have said it in person. A conversation that didn't fucking suck that I actually could stick around with and give someone some beneficial advice. But you know, as an independent artist, and by independent artist, I just mean like a guy that fucking makes music.
I will say, as a side note, that I think being an independent musician has blown up a lot, which is why I really like this video because he has signed to some labels and everything. He has his own label and whatnot. But I think like especially in this day and age, with platforms like DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore, it's so easy now even to make your own label. I've done videos about that on DistroKid. It's super easy to do. And so I think this is why this video is so... I love everything he says throughout this video because there's a lot of unique nuggets I am going to talk about. And of course, have a sip too, which by the way, I know I'm taking like super small sips. Just don't judge considering the fact that I genuinely don't know if I bought enough beer. I don't think a 6 pack is going to be enough already. We'll see.
Are you a major? And fuck, nobody knows you from their ass in a hole in the ground. The kind of key thing you got to realize, especially with the fucking, in this age now, I started out kind of at a time when, the internet was just kind of coming out, coming into age in terms of not like, oh, the internet. I mean, Netscape's always been around, but like, the internet is such a fucking vestibule for, promotion and Twitter and social networks and stuff like that. Like, I probably started making music just before the MySpace boom, so there really wasn't anything like that. Like, there was mp3.com, which lasted like, a year or two.
What's kind of interesting is I actually remember that. Back in the day, when I first got into music, which I was a classical pianist, jazz saxophonist, and everything, but the first song that I ever heard that I loved, in terms of like really being into, was a song called Let the Beat Control Your Body by 2 Unlimited. You probably heard of 2 Unlimited. They did the songs like Twilight Zone, No Limit is a big one at like sports games, like no, 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 there's no limit. No. Yeah. Probably not the best like cover interpretation, but that was a huge song I remember. And Let the Beat Control Your Body was like a super underrated one that I got huge into. And I remember I had to download it on Kazaa, if anyone remembers that, because like he's talking about, back in the day, there really wasn't any place to like stream or play music on the internet. The first like software you could use was Napster, actually. Then after Napster was Kazaa. There was another rare one called like Morpheus. And then after that was LimeWire. I think a lot of people remember Napster because it was the first. LimeWire because it was like the next gen or the next generation of like getting songs or whatever. But then obviously things like MySpace came out and other platforms that made it a lot easier. But back in the day, like you could only like share MP3s and it would take like hours just to download one MP3. It took forever.
Whatever and stuff like that. But there were no huge, there wasn't a lot of media coverage on that kind of thing. So I never had to do that. And I think that worked out in my favor because y- when you're starting out, you have to realize that you want to make people, you want to make music for people, not for the fucking internet, not for blogs, not for all this other shit. So I think that if I had to do this again in today's climate, at least with all this shit, I would really focus on being very offline. I know.
I, you know, what's interesting? I kind of disagree to an extent. I get what he's saying. He's going to talk about this, but I genuinely think that in this day and age, it's tough because I think you need to kind of do both. But with anything right now, I've seen musicians blow up. What's the guy's name? Ray Volp, I believe, with the song Laser Beam or whatever. Like, got big from like TikTok and these kind of viral videos. So I've seen DJs get big from doing TikTok videos, social media videos, that kind of thing. I get what you said when it comes to probably like networking, which is going to touch upon, but I feel like you kind of have to be in both arenas now, which is a lot. As a musician now, it's a difficult thing to navigate, like marketing and video production and video editing and knowing how to manage like social media when it comes to like TikTok and algorithms. I mean, it's a lot, but I actually kind of disagree with him that now you kind of need to be like everywhere
It
almost.
sounds fucking crazy, but there comes a point where you do get online in terms of like I've got this fan page and I've got this Facebook that's got all these followers and shit like that. But I mean, don't take your music, and go to a fucking nightclub, meet a DJ, go to a radio station. Like it's still old school as fuck, and I'm probably gonna sound old school as fuck, but honestly, connections made in person are a million billion times more valuable than a fucking spam link. You know,
And I wish that is true. That is one thing I do agree with him on. I think, like I said, you need to be online and everything. But that is one thing I definitely agree with him. Cool little pro tip, too, I got from the Jordan Harbinger show. Great podcast, by the way. Is he mentioned he was talking about one DJ in terms of his suggestions getting a demo in person. And he said one thing you can do, as a little pro tip for all my DJs out there, this includes myself, of course, is to remix a song in your own style that a DJ can use in their sets. I even talked about this a little bit when it comes to Skrillex. I didn't really touch upon this point, but it's kind of similar where, how can you make a song and give a DJ a demo that they can use in their sets? And I think that's a big thing a lot of producers forget. That, like, say you meet Deadmau5 in person, you have like a thumbstick or whatever, and you give it to them, rather than saying how to make a song that's great, think how to make a song that represents my style that would be great in their sets. And I personally made like remixes of like Moominton or world music songs that represented my style, but that were done in such a way that I know other DJs could use. And like you said, especially if you meet someone in person, you're like, hey, do this style. By the way, I know you made the song Ghost and Stuff. I did my own Moominton remix of Ghost and Stuff. I thought because you made the song, you might like it. Now that not only is great to meet them in person, but that stands out. I met Grabbitz years ago at an event here in LA, and I remixed his song, Let Go. Ironically, he was the vocalist when it comes to the song with him and Deadmau5. And he was like, I'd love to hear a remix and everything. So that's a great way to create a personal connection. Not only, of course, in person, right, which is a lot better, more intimate, but also kind of pre-plan in advance. And this is something I do now. If I'm going to an event where I know either the genre of the show, what artist might be there, I kind of pre-plan what demo I'm going to give, depending upon what I think the DJ might respond best to.
or an email or a demo or so you really need to like do a lot of fucking groundwork. And I'll tell you, actually, you know what? That's how I kind of found out about Sonny. Now I didn't invent fucking Skrillex. Skrillex invented fucking Skrillex.
Right. Just say as a side note, why is it this weird running joke in EDM where I don't know what it is, maybe because it feels like DJs want to be in or whatever, that people will actually say like, oh, Skrillex, don't you mean Sonny? I don't know why. I always thought that was kind of weird. It's only with Skrillex, not with like Deadmau5's real name is Joel, but it's like no one ever says Deadmau5, you mean Joel, right? It's like Skrillex, you mean Sonny? I don't know why. I don't know. Let me know anything in the comments about that. But I've noticed that a lot, especially with like beginning producers. Maybe not as much now, but back in the day, people would be like, oh wait, Skrillex? No, his name's Sonny. And it's like, dude, you know what I mean? Like,
So there's no doubt about that. And I mean, his sound from, Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites was the same before we even fucking put that album out, So that was kind of one captivating thing. But Sonny came to, he was in person. He came to an event like me and Tommy just Tommy Lee crashed some random fucking hard party out in L.A. I don't think we performed. I think he asked us to perform, and I couldn't. But we were just in that neighborhood, and we're like, "Fuck it, let's go to this party." I know Gary, no, no, no. And then we were all sitting backstage, and then Tommy said, "Oh, hey, you got to meet this kid, Sonny. He makes some music and no, 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 whatever." And then Sonny came in, and he delivered me actually the fucking Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites on a fucking USB key, you know. And I was like, "Oh, cool," you know. And I'm more likely to take that fucking piece of hardware and make that, you know, physical connection. Well, he seems like a normal fucking kid, a little fucking wacky, and yeah, and he kind of has his head around the music thing because he's done it with his previous endeavors with From First to Last kind of thing. But that was a personal connection, and you know, and then I took that back and milled over it for a while, you know, and now fucking Skrillex, right? Like, took him on tour for a while and, you know, introed him out, shared what I thought was cool at the time, and then all of a sudden the kid's fucking running laps around me, and I'm like, all right, off you go, back to Big Beat. Or Alza, however you please. So, you know, like that's kind of cool shit. So, the moral of the story is if Sonny just fucking emailed me links and posted SoundCloud stuff and all that shit, I would never have fucking found that shit, you know. And it's not necessarily about, you know, appeasing one guy or, you know, getting a, you know, just hammering at shit. So my start was really like going to okay, here. I'll give you, I got a minute, so I'll give you my life story. So when I was growing up in Niagara Falls, I, you know, found out.
By the way, I actually wore the shirt. It's not from Niagara Falls, but from Canada. So in case you're curious, let me move this out of the way. This is a shirt from the Monkey Vault. Give them a shout out. This is a big parkour gym in Toronto, Canada. In case you ever go, it's a great parkour gym. One of my favorites I've ever been to. In case you know, I do parkour. I've been doing it for about, actually over a decade now. So I figured like this is the only Canada shirt I have. I actually have two, but so anyway, yeah.
You know, electronic music and all that stuff through like, you know, friends and shit like that were into it. And I went to a couple like small little raves and shit like that and thought, wow, this is kind of neat. I want to get into this. And then, you know, I get home, get on America Online or whatever the fuck, and, you know, hit up some GeoCities pages to how do you make electronic music. And I mean, now, fuck, luckily for you guys, there's all this fucking shit out there that just basically shits out a fucking EDM tune for you. Back then, computers weren't even capable.
Which, by the way, I just posted a couple videos about AI music. It's funny that making electronic music has gotten easier, and there's more information about it now, of course. Like master classes, he's done one. YouTube tutorials, you can go on Splice and download. You know, I mean, even like a demo kit and put it together in 2 seconds. I mean, granted, you shouldn't do that, but it's a lot easier now. But now I'm even worried that I think we're getting to the next stage where, like, you go to, you know, a couple AI programs that I've used, hit a couple buttons like dubstep drop with rhythm elements or whatever, and boom, there it is. So now it's getting even scarier. And I know some people, when I posted some of that AI music recently, was like, oh no, this is not that good. These songs are not that good. I mean, and I said this before in those videos, I mean, with things getting bigger, with AI getting smarter, I mean, to most people, they probably couldn't tell if it was AI or not. And for me, if someone sent me that demo and I just mentioned this, I don't think I would think it was an AI. I'd be like, this person has probably been producing for 6 months, maybe a year. They needed a lot of work, but, you know, there's a decent starting point. But, yeah, things are getting even easier, which the creativity comes more into question and everything.
Well, recording 16-bit audio, so fuck you all. You know, like, and that kind of thing. So I started out with, like, really simple shit. So there were programs like totally ancient DOS programs called trackers and stuff like that that just made like chiptune sounding shit. So I got into that and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like nothing I hear on the fucking radio because, you know, they use equipment, they use synthesizers and all this shit. So I had to investigate this shit. So I just, in my infinite fucking wisdom, figured I'd go to the nearest, you know, our local big computer store that, you know, is like a mom and pop shop kind of thing, you know, but they specialize in building computer systems for consumer use, basically. And it was, funnily enough, it was called Cyberdyne Systems, and it was in Niagara Falls. And I went there and I said, hey guys, anyone, you guys know anything about electronic or making music with a computer kind of thing, and they were like, well, yeah, we know some things, but I mean, none of us are fucking producers or anything like that.
So, in case you're curious, a little fun fact, at least about me, the first time I ever, I don't know if I'd count this. Let me know what you think for especially my musicians out there, like people who've played an instrument. The first program I ever used to make music was actually Finale. Finale was a program. I wouldn't say you're producing, but it's a sheet music program. So you type in notes like sheet music, like for piano, saxophone, any instrument, and you could play it back. And I remember being like, oh my God, I can make my own melodies. You can change the instrument, which at the time I was just so blown away by that I could use Finale. Or I think the first one I used, which was like the free version, was Finale Notepad, I believe was the name of it. So you could type in the notes, create sheet music, and play it or play it back. Or you could actually download it as a MIDI file and like do stuff with the MIDI file. Or you can print out the sheet music as like, say, like a PDF and then use that PDF, you know, in terms of like setting it up at the piano when you play it. So that was the first time I actually got into like making music. I wouldn't say it was production or producing as more as arranging, I think is probably what I'd say. Like there wasn't really sound design or anything like that or mixing. Or it was more just like you're creating notes that you can play back, or if you want to play back, or bounce out as a MIDI and then everything. But that's where I started. And then after that, we went from Finale/Finale Notepad, Machine, and then after Machine was Ableton. That's kind of like my 3-step process.
And the owner of the shop kind of came around, overheard the conversation, said, you know, well, maybe you want Cakewalk. That's a really high end thing, and it really was at the time. Trust me. Cakewalk and Cubase were like the two fucking things.
I remember Cakewalk actually.
She was like, oh yeah, you want Cakewalk and this and that, and I was like, oh wow, okay, great. So I went over there and started thinking about that, and I'm thinking, wow, Cakewalk's like, you know, 300 fucking bucks, which might as well be fucking what a billion is to me now, you know. And as it turned out, because I made that human connection, and like I said, this is going to keep tying into my point. As
I will say this, when it comes to, and again, I'm just talking like off the cusp because I've met obviously a lot of people throughout my travels in LA, DJing. I will say, when it comes to demos, I find demos and music is a little bit different than getting a DJ gig. I want to say that for like my DJs out there, because I find that all the big DJ gigs I've gotten, I'd have to think about this, but I think 99% have all been from in person. You meet somebody, you get that connection. Because let's be honest, if I post on Craigslist, for example, or anywhere on Facebook Marketplace or something saying, I'm looking for a DJ who knows CDJs, who can do a 1-hour set of house music, and I push that in LA, there's hundreds of people who can do that. I'm going to be honest. Yes, it may be a good turntablist or whatever, but I think especially in a competitive market like LA or Miami, Boston not as much, maybe Chicago, especially for house music, you know, making that human connection is big. And I always said before, you need to be everywhere. I think for your music, if you're looking at yourself as an electronic musician, as a producer, your music needs to be everywhere, both online and offline. But when it comes to getting gigs, and you want to go down that route, which of course, why wouldn't you? Obviously, you want to do both. I think human connection is big, and that's why I go, and I say this to a lot of people, go to as many events as you can, network, meet people, you know, I think that's just part of the game, you know?
As I made that human connection, that human interaction, that actually get off the fucking internet and go do shit thing, you know, now Adam says, well, hey, you know...
It's one Corona down, and oh boy, we're only 1/5 into this video. I do have a 6-pack, but oh boy. You know, I'm gonna. These limes are like from Trader Joe's. They're like super like juicy. Probably should not do this on the table. Oh boy. But I guess it's a sign of a good lime, right? I'm like, I used to bartend too, and I'm greatly messing this up. Yeah, whatever.
We're a bunch of DJs, and by DJs, I mean they were like DJs. They had vinyl turntables and all that shit because fuck, Pioneer wasn't even on the fucking market at that time. Or whatever.
No, I'm gonna change it. If you chain swears, I'll just like drink for like a few seconds or whatever, as opposed to like doing each individual sip. Oh boy, I'm kind of curious if like say Deadmau5 would ever watch this video or like react to it, being like, this random guy is effing like, which is funny with YouTube. I feel like still now it's hard for me to swear on camera because I'm so used to like YouTube and stuff like that. Even though this video is pretty much all swearing. But yeah, it'd be funny if you ever watch this video being like,
Besides the point. So he says, "Oh, we're DJs, and we get some guys, some hip hop guys from, Rochester, and another DJ from Niagara Falls, and we put together this radio show." And I was like, "Oh wow, that's really cool. Can I?" He's like, "Hey, we're gonna tape the show, and you should come by and just fucking hang out, And then that's what I did. I hung out. I was the fucking kid that just sat in a fucking chair and watched these guys fucking DJ, right? Now, I knew that none of them were making music. They were just putting together a show. And then Adam was showing me that, I'm going to use, oh God, I can't remember the name of half the applications he used. But, he would record it in SoundForge or something like that. And then how he'd burn it to a CD and all that stuff, and how he edits in commercials.
I will say this is funny that a lot of people now, like Gen Z, which I guess it's part of the generational progress, that I guess a lot of Gen Z doesn't even know what the term burning a CD means, which I guess makes sense though. I feel like there's a bunch of terms probably way back in the day, because I was born in 89, in case you're curious, that I don't even know, right? But I know, like, I think there was like a survey they asked around a bunch of Gen Z people, like, do you know what burning a CD is? And they had like no idea. I think the biggest guess, or one of the biggest guesses, was if you take or steal someone's CD, which I guess I could see as like a slang term, like, oh, this dude burned my CD, or which means like he stole my music or whatever. I guess I could see like the logic.
Like that. And that just got me sparked. And I was like, oh shit, that's so cool. So of course, every week these guys would produce this show, and I would go in and hang out and watch them fucking do it. And that's it. It's just being there, It's not even like hard to figure out how to make these
I don't know who said this, but I think it's like 80% of being successful is just showing up. So kind of on the same note.
And, you're there long enough, they all become your buddies or whatever. I mean, of course, I'm like fucking 15 years old or whatever, but it was still really cool. And as the years went by, like, I mean, it was like, another year or 6 months or something like that, then all of a sudden I realized, like, hey, Adam would say, I got to go do this fucking thing for this customer, because he still runs a fucking mom and pop computer shop kind of thing. And he's like, can you just, edit this commercial in for me? And I was like, oh, okay, well, I fucking, I've seen you a million fucking times and do it, so I can fucking do that. And then I fucking go in and I do that, right? And then it just became such a thing that, I was so there and active and involving myself in that process all the time, where it was like, hey, I'm just going to come to the shop and dick around with some of the fucking computers upstairs in the studio and make some music. And then another one of the DJs from that kind of operation where they had that radio show said, hey, I'm going to go open up a record store, and I'm going to build a studio in the back and all this stuff. And I'm like, fuck, sounds good to me. So, skip fucking school and go hang out at a record shop, right? It's like fucking every kid's dream when you're.
I will say, in case you've never done it, which is, it's kind of like a dying thing now, going into a record shop, like, the vibe is unmatched. It reminds me a little bit now of like going into like a Blockbuster, like back in the day, which obviously there's only one left in the world in Bend, Oregon, here in the United States. Yeah, I feel like record shops are just not that prevalent, although I will say, there are a couple places that have like kind of like a record shop vibe. Like tonight, actually, after this whole thing, I'm going to a Hotel Ziggy, which is on the Sunset Strip here in Los Angeles. And that place has like a vibe of like a combination of almost like a record store feel with a bar. It's a hotel as well, hence the name Hotel Ziggy. But also they have like different music shows going on all the time. So it's a really cool vibe. So like that kind of gives me some record store vibes. But there's something I do kind of miss. Like I remember going into like, what was it called? I think FYE was the name of the store. But before it was something called like Radio. I think Radio City was the name. Then it went to FYE. We could go in like sample CDs or cassettes or whatever. Like obviously vinyl records as well when it comes to vinyl stores, but really cool.
16, But this is what, I don't really necessarily feel too bad about it, but actually what happened was I spent so much time in that fucking studio learning shit and downloading stuff and, putting together things and learning to make music and all that stuff that I was like, you couldn't get me out of that fucking studio. Like my mom would be calling, like, "Where's Joy? You gotta come home." No, and then it would be like, of course when you're around.
I mean, I know I keep stopping and giving my thoughts, but like, there's a lot of like unique points that bring me on like a unique side tangent that's super relevant. For example, I've heard of people exactly like this when it comes to like people who picked up a guitar and they're like, I cannot get this guitar out of my hands. They play for 10, 12 hours a day, every day. You know, it's like this obsession that I think you see with a lot of creative people that, you know, people talk about like the 10,000 hour rule from the book Outliers. And it's true, you know, 10,000 hours to become a master at least, right? For most people, they say it's probably more than 10,000 hours, you know, but you hear this from a lot of people that they pick up Ableton, they pick up a guitar, they pick up a paintbrush, they, you know, they just pick up something. They start playing soccer or whatever, and like they're just hooked. I mean, like I cannot do anything else, and like I'm beyond obsessed.
17, 18, you know, none of that shit applies. So literally, I would pull all-nighters in there and just dick around in the back of the record shop. Well, they were like more DJs, you know what I mean? So they would go, you know, to the nightclubs, play records, whatever, and sold records inside the shop, and that was like kind of the furthest point of their aspirations in music business, you know what I mean? But I was kind of that, plus I was producing or learning to produce. I didn't churn out a fucking tune in the first 6 years of my like kind of just hanging out and learning about electronic music and the scene at the time. And I'm like, forgive me, like, but you know, I have a lot of younger viewers here who are like 18 to 24, but I'm talking like, you know, when Chemical Brothers and Left Field and Armand Van Helden and you know, the Cassius and shit, Bomb Scare, all those old fucking house records and shit were like selling physical and shit like that. So that was around that time is when I was dicking around. So I fucking, you know, just hung out and fucking did that. And I think it weirdly, not weirdly enough, you know, came to a point where I was kind of superseding everyone in terms of how to do something, you know. So, you know, some of the guys from the record shop would be like, I have to put together this commercial and I don't know fucking how to do this trick or this thing or make a jingle or whatever. I just record the show and fucking slap it on a CD and drop it off at the radio station. I was like, well, fuck here. You know what I mean? So I kind of outpaced everyone in terms of technology. And then, you know, the record shop then got a little bit tired and, you know, I kind of hit my bottleneck there where it's like, you know, well, now what? What do we do? You know, it's like, fuck. And unfortunately, the record shop closed, and I had to figure life out again. So I basically living at home thinking, shit, well, fuck, now I'm fucked. So then what happened is, you know, I got some jobs. I worked in a cannery, fucking peeling peaches and pears, which I will never eat to this day. I still will never eat another peach or another fucking pear. Every time I smell one, see one, or whatever, it just drives me fucking bonkers because that job was so horrible. Working at a cannery, I don't wish that on fucking Garrix, dude. It was bad.
Also, I'm kind of curious, to be honest. Let me know what you think. I know he gives like a lot of shots towards Martin Garrix, at least in the past streams that he's done like years and years ago. Because I saw recently, it was like a couple of months ago, him and Martin Garrix are hanging out in his hotel room and Garrix was like spinning. So obviously they're like cool. Like there's no, I think, like intense tension between them. Then again, Deadmau5. I think people just know Deadmau5 is Deadmau5. But I'm always kind of curious, like out of all, you know, oh, excuse me. Out of all like DJs, why targets Garrix. I mean, like if you look back, there's a couple documentaries about Garrix. I remember hearing that he went to like, I think it was Spinnin' Records. He walked in because they were like, oh, this guy Martin Garrix is wicked good music. Walked in, I think he was like 12 or 13 at the time, and they thought it was a prank. They're like, what? They're like, okay, where's the real Martin Garrix? And he goes, no, I'm Martin Garrix. That's how good of a producer he was. And they're like, no, like where's like the real Martin Garrix? And so he's like, oh, so he pulled out his computer and made a song in front of them. And they were both like, they were all like blown away. Like these people at Spinnin' Records are like, oh my God, this kid's like prodigy, you know, like a genius, of course, when it comes to producing. And then, of course, Animals came out for him, and then the rest is history. But I mean, like, in my mind, like, even though he was wicked young, he was on the Ultra stage at, what, like 15 or 16, he still paid his dues, in my opinion. You know, he still put in the work, you know. But I'm curious, maybe that's why, like, because he was so young that he got to where he was, but, yeah.
So, I fucking, you know, scrounged up enough fucking pennies to buy my own 486 and, you know, put that in my bedroom, and I was like, oh, fucking great. You know, now I don't have to schlep all the way downtown to the studio or the record store anymore and drive my parents insane or fucking whatever. I can just do this shit from home. And then that's when I really had a lot of time to, focus on my shit and fail high school and get yelled at by my mom and my dad to get a real fucking job and all that. Dude, it happens to everyone. I don't care who the fuck you are. And then what happened then? Yeah, fuck the pears, dude. I was like, fuck pears. Timeline. I'm just trying to remember my past here. So, yeah. So then I'm, I've got this computer in my bedroom, and I'm like, well, okay, mom, dad, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not going to be a fucking EDM or fucking rock star when I'm older. So let's start thinking about plan B here. Learn to do web development, like GeoCity shit, nothing amazing, and then and then Flash. And Flash actually was really helpful to me because when it came out, it was like every website in the world had a. Hang on one sec. Yes.
Okay, I'm taking off.
All right. See you later.
It's in the top garage.
Yeah, that's fine.
So see you Monday.
Okay. Is it locked or is it shut?
Yeah, it's closed, and I'll close the gate on the way out.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
No problem.
Bye. Oh, is Kelly here?
No, she's not gonna be back till late. She said, but like.
The fuck's she doing?
9, 10 o'clock sort of thing.
Oh, all right. Okay. So, like I said, Flash came out, and every corporate website fucking had a Flash intro. It was the craziest fad I've ever seen, and
You good?
that was the worst. I had like a tickle in my throat. Oh, it's still there. God, I'm gonna die. All right, I'm good. Anyway, a Flash comes out, and Flash, of course, as you know, supports audio. So there are some like guys. Jesus fuck, that's gnarly. I've never had that happen before. Just hang on. Smoking's probably not optimal.
Nah.
One sec. I'm okay.
Guess it's a good break from beer. Just right now, just chilling for a second.
You're gonna die if you keep smoking. I'm gonna die anyway. Like, it's another 10 years when I'm 80. Probably wanna die at that age. Okay, so Flash started, audio, blah blah blah. So there were some companies that actually were music libraries, like online music libraries that web developers could go to, license music off their shit, and then royalty free, and put that music in their Flash intros and on their website and stuff like that. So I found this one company in Palo Alto or Fremont, somewhere in there. Oh, Fremont, yeah. And the company was called like Killer Sound, and what they were is an online sound library where you could go. If you're a company or a web developer and you want to have music that isn't like fucking Billy Ray Cyrus, who's going to sue you for putting him on his website or me or whatever. And he ran this massive library, but he also had like a little army of dudes like me who just sat at home and wrote music randomly and put it out online or whatever. And I approached him. I said, hey, of course I fucking blew smoke up his ass. I'm a composer from Niagara Falls. I make electronic music sort of, and I'd like to, be a part of this thing. And he was like, oh, cool. So, I gave him some loops and tracks and stuff like that for him to sell on his site. And they did okay. Like, didn't fucking, blow his company up or whatever. But he it stood out in his library, and a lot of guys were like licensing my stuff because electronica was just kind of starting before anything it's like now. But so a lot of like car wash companies or fucking God knows what were like, oh yeah, I want an electronica sound on my website or whatever. So that's what I did, and it stood out. And then I would get a little, nothing massive, just little paychecks here and there from this company that shared some of the dividends and profits from purchases back to the artist. So I was like, oh wow, this is like almost a full-time fucking job. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to make music and fucking sell it to companies or commercials or film, or make my own music. God knows what. This is me. So and again, we're talking like a span of like 7 years. It's not like all this shit just happened one week, next week, and the week after that. Like, it took a while, dude. So
Yeah, overnight success takes 10 years, right? So
that was kind of my job for a little while too, is developing music for music libraries. But all the time I was doing that, as shitty as it was, and in comparison of what I'm doing fucking now, I'm learning. You know what I mean? Like, I'm learning this, I'm learning that. I'm fucking
I know I'm taking like baby sips, but I'm almost done with the second one already. That reminds me of like a big thing. I think I heard this from, I think it was Tim Ferriss. I think he called it, or someone he interviewed called it systems thinking. And that is, how can you do something that even if you fail at it, you can still utilize the thing that you failed at? I'm trying to think of like a good example, because he mentions this, and I think it's a really interesting point, because he says like, oh, yeah, it wasn't a full-time job, and obviously it's Deadmau5, so we eventually made it. Of course, we all know this, but I think like he brought up the point that he was still learning, even though he wasn't fully making it. I think this brings up a couple of interesting points. That one, of course, constantly learning will always progress you to the next step, but two, using what Tim Ferriss talked about, who's a big famous entrepreneur and author and everything, he said like, how can you learn something in such a way that even if you fail at it, it's still a useful skill. So for example, like take in this case, like obviously I make YouTube videos, right? And YouTube's going well for me. I'm a full-time, musician and producer and a YouTuber. That's pretty much what I do. But let's say for whatever reason, YouTube doesn't work out one day. Well, because I took the time to learn video editing, video production, I cover a lot of events as well, like music festivals and whatnot. The good thing is, if let's say I ever fail at YouTube and YouTube doesn't work out, I can take the skills that I learned and let's say get a video editing job. Or maybe I do press coverage, become a news anchor, right? Because I'm so used to being on camera and talking to the camera, as opposed to like say typical acting, where we pretend the camera doesn't exist, right? When it comes to typical acting, in this case, I'm talking to the camera. So I think that brings up, again, another unique side point where it's like, how can you do something in such a way that one, you can keep learning, but two, it allows you to, through the failure of what you're pursuing, still gain a certain thing, knowledge or skill set or whatever, that can be a good piggyback or springboard to something more beneficial or another big thing in the future.
New software comes out, I'm on top of it and all that shit. So it's like, you're just sharpening the fucking knife, and you're getting fucking paid for it too. So there's so many ancillary markets in music creation that you don't have to fucking put out an EDM banger to make $1 million fucking bucks a year. You really don't.
All right. Today's, and I'm just gonna do it without the lime. I got the lime like everywhere when I tried to put it in. So
no, I mean, it helps, but you don't need to fucking worry about that shit, because you'll get there, because you're not gonna fucking get there. Well, at least at the time,
I knew he sweared a lot, but I think now that I'm actually like doing this, which again is still probably the most. I have to think about this. And this may be the most ridiculous YouTube video I think I've ever done. In case you don't know, I have 4 different channels. I have a vlog one, which is me experiencing new things. One about making money, like accounting, finance, Uber and Lyft, the gig economy. My music, and this channel. And so, yeah, I have to think about that, but this is a pretty dumb video.
I'm going to get there because they didn't have Fruity Loops and woodblock samples.
Yeah,
right?
Garrick.
So
Clashback.
had to work at it, unfortunately. So that shit just happens. And like I said, you do that for long enough, you practice, you learn things that you impress yourself. Like, holy shit, wow, last year I didn't even know how to fucking do this thing, and now I'm already like learning about mixing, techniques and stuff like that, and just accumulating like a fucking sponge. That's so important to just take in information, not watch.
That's a big suggestion I have to a lot of people is when it comes to making song after song. And I've said this before actually in a couple videos that actually commenting on like Deadmau5 stuff. Is each song you make, try to get better in one thing. Because as you can imagine, music production is overwhelming. You're talking about music theory, arranging, this depends on the genre, sound design, mixing, EQing, compression, reverb, overdrive. I mean, there's so many little elements and so many different things you can do. So I'd say a lot of people like try to get better at least one thing for each song. So you're like, on the next song, I'm really going to specialize on EQing, and I'm going to watch a bunch of YouTube tutorials about EQing and blah, blah, blah,
Tutorials and fucking how to make fat beats, yo. And
that's one thing I disagree with him on. By the way, I did a video of the 5 things I disagree with Deadmau5. I think YouTube tutorials can be good, but they should be, on how about this, retroactively used than proactively used. Because I see a lot of people sometimes who fall into this trap where they watch 100 tutorials or whatever and never make a song. It should be, okay, I'm making a song. I'm trying to figure out, I don't know, this one sound design for a progressive house record. Then you go to YouTube and say, how do I make a progressive house lead in Serum, for example? Or using Ableton's operator to make a good bass or acid or 303 line, right? That's the way tutorials should be used. And I think a lot of musicians kind of flip-flop that, where they just watch too many, almost like entertainment, which is, I guess there's nothing wrong with that, right? I guess if you're watching tutorials, it's probably better than watching something on Netflix, right? But it can be a big waste of time. Like if you're going to learn skiing, you wouldn't watch 100 skiing tutorials. You probably ski, fall on your butt, get back up, be like, okay, I was doing the wrong movement, and you keep like going from there. I think that's the best way to use tutorials.
Fucking watch shitty fucking EDM artists who fucking jerk themselves off on future music about, oh, and here's how I put together a beat. No, fuck that. You gotta do that shit, because that's how you learn. That's how you make you. You know what I mean? Not you fucking clone the fucking clone of a clone. That's really important, and that's something I can hear.
By the way, in case you're curious, I'm not a beer drinker at all. Like, I'll have a beer here and there. I like liquor. I've been on like this big mezcal kick recently, in case you're curious. Tequila and mezcal are my go-tos. So I can't drink like a ton of beer really fast. I've never been able to chug or anything like that. As you can probably tell, like I'm on my 3rd one. I'm like struggling now because it's just like, oh man.
Mile a fucking way, especially when I'm, just out and about scouting. Like, who do I want on my fucking label, and same goes for everyone else and every other semi-major indie label. So the thing too after that is when it kind of became practical, where I thought, oh, okay, well, I can make music, I can make money, all right, and I can learn. Great. But you're obviously like, well, I have no equipment. I'm not making hundreds of thousands of dollars, so I can't buy fucking this crazy equipment that, is the fucking unicorn or the holy grail of synth, or this cool mixing console, or this audio card. It was all just a little out of reach. So again, there you go. Get on your fucking bike, go outside and fucking meet people, and then I'd go to a studio, like a recording studio that had,
I mean, that's a really good point. Like if you, like say, want to practice on CDJs or use, I don't know, some type of piece of equipment. I mean, granted, a lot of things now, like you can easily do very much so in the box. Like I found that when I first started producing, I bought all this equipment. I had like an 88 MIDI keyboard. I had like the machine, both hardware and software. I had a few other things. Excuse me. And over time, I noticed my like setup shrunk. Where now, and I'm not joking, when I produce, I just have my computer. I need a mouse. I know like Skrillex loves using the mouse pad, or the trackpad. Other DJs or producers do as well. It's just my computer and my mouse, right? But if let's say you do want to use equipment like a nice Moog or something like that, or excuse me, Moog or Moog, I can't, yeah, Corona. Or let's say you want to use like a certain like piece of hardware, or like say you want to practice on CDJs, I think getting involved with the studio or meeting somebody is the best way to go until you can get your own or kind of work way up.
$500,000 worth of fucking gear and shit that I could never fucking hope to own, and whatever shit like that. And I met a guy named Dean Malton who was a mixing engineer and a studio owner. Funnily enough, the studio just so happened to be a couple blocks away from my house in an industrial park, and did what I do. I went in, hey, dude, I make electronic music. I know it's not your fucking area, but I just like to hang around and check shit out, and just sit in on a couple sessions, learn a couple things. I'm not gonna fucking tell you to pay me or anything, because I won't be doing anything, but just go be a fucking intern.
Another huge pro tip I learned from Tim Ferriss, and again, these are all things, I know it sounds like super random side notes, but super relevant, like things I wish I knew earlier. As Tim Ferriss said, when he went to South by Southwest, for example, which is a big festival in Austin, that he would do really well in terms of networking, meeting the right people, because one, he said that he would first volunteer, right? Like as he's saying, like, don't pay me, I'm gonna volunteer. But secondly, which is a bigger one, he said most people who do a volunteer job usually suck at it, right? I mean, let's be honest, because you're like, I'm not getting paid, why am I gonna try to work super hard? I'm gonna kind of like go through the motions. But the third thing is also that because you're volunteering and you're at South by Southwest or at the studio, it's the quickest in to build that network, right? So I think a big thing I say to a lot of people is like contact a studio near your area or whatever, or contact like a label near your area. See if you can volunteer for them so they don't have to pay you. Then crush it. Like work your butt off harder than ever. And they're like, wow, this person who's not even getting paid is crushing it, which gives you a good impression. But then also, I mean, if you say you're interning for a label, for example, and it's like a free internship, I'm making this up. Well, if that label has a big night at a nightclub, you can go for free and be backstage. If, say, they have an event, you can probably go for free. If, say, they're having X, Y, or Z, and that's a way for you to kind of work your way up, meet the right kind of people.
Be a fucking coffee guy, whatever. Just whatever gets you in that fucking room, because sooner or later, the opportunity for you to use all this shit you've been fucking learning is going to come up, like, almost instantly, So I get in there, and I see this guy. He's using a 60 or a 32 channel Hill console. I'm sure maybe some percentage of you know what that is. It's just like a big mixing board, basically. That thing Garrix uses as a fucking laptop stand. That thing.
Okay.
But a Hill one, not a SSL. So I go in there, and he's got that and 3 DA88s, right, which are a digital tape. Basically, so all the summing from the mix that he does on this big console goes into these tape machines. And like I said, the opportunity came up for me to go, hey, you can do all that shit in the box now, eh? You don't even need the DA88s. You could actually dump all the stuff that are on all those little fucking tapes and put them on a fucking computer and see it on a fucking screen. He's like, really? Yeah. And I mean, like I said, the computers were just coming of fucking age to be able to fucking do that at that time. We're talking 97, 98. And, he was just like, he's an old guy. He's a tape guy, So I was just like, yeah, man, fucking, yeah, you can totally do this on a computer, dude. And they even now make these things called virtual studio technology with Cubase and all this innuendo and stuff that you can really save a lot of time doing this. So then he's like, oh, well, shit. So he went out and he went to this is like some full circle shit. So he goes to Cyberdyne, the place where I first fucking walked into, gets a computer built, brings it into the fucking studio. We park it up, put some fucking monitors up on the console so we can use a computer while he mixes and shit. And then he said, well, here you go, fucking, you know how to do it, so why don't you take these DA88 tapes from this session or whatever and dump them into fucking Cubase. Fucking brilliant. Okay, there, now I have a fucking purpose, you know what I mean? Because I know something that fucking mix engineer don't fucking know guy. Now he's probably well, I haven't spoke to him in a while, but I mean, now.
I thought, oh man. I thought maybe he'd I don't know, swear maybe more in the beginning or a little bit I feel as the swear count is increasing. I should have maybe have a count or something being how many times he swears throughout the video. But I mean, I don't know how people drink beer wicked fast. Like I've seen people like pound them. Not me. Like I said, more of a shot guy, mixed drink, definitely shots for sure. Corona, I don't know.
That's probably his
Yeah.
standard thing, you know. So it was a two-way relationship because, like, you know, he knows a lot about, you know, analog stuff and EQing and how to use stuff as opposed to what the medium of it. And I could learn that way, you know, so I could learn signal path and, you know, real analog engineering and stuff like that, and how to hear for things and tips and tricks and shit like that that Fruity Loops tutorials are not going to fucking give you, you know what I mean? Like I said, you can download all the fucking software you want, you can fucking buy all the plugins you fucking want, but if you don't know how it actually fucking works, really, then what's the point? You know, it's like, well, it would be like getting a self-driving P1. If you don't know how to fucking drive, honestly, what a waste of fucking time. So the thing is like I said, it's an exchange of knowledge in where you have an edge or something to give. You know, in
I will say so. This is something I learned actually, kind of unrelated, but you know, kind of similar when it comes to acting. I back in the day before I was really going big into DJing, I wanted to be an actor. Actually, well, I wanted to be a stunt guy, or excuse me, an actor who does my own stunts, like a Jackie Chan type thing, combining parkour and the acrobatics that I can do with acting. And I remember because I have an accounting background, one suggestion I got to lower the resistance or the least path of resistance was to talk to other actors or people in the industry saying, hey, do you need help with your accounting or taxes? Let me help you. Go down that, make connections doing that. And I think this brings up a kind of an interesting point of how can you provide somebody some knowledge that they can't get anywhere else? Not like a trade, like, oh, I'm gonna do this for you if you know, but just like giving people knowledge because it's very, you know, in this situation, he's talking about music to music, right? But like there's been DJs, for example, I'm not gonna mention any names for privacy reasons, who I saw them post something about fitness and they're like, oh, I'm trying to do this thing, or like, I'm trying to do this thing. And I've kind of been like, hey, by the way, I specialize in calisthenics. I noticed you're trying to do this. Here's some pro tips. And then they DM me. They're like, hey, dude, I appreciate this. Can you give me more advice? So I start talking to them. And then they say, oh, by the way, I'm curious, actually. I'm a DJ as well. I'm a producer. Do you mind checking out my new track? And they're like, dude, like for sure. So this point, as you can imagine now, we first started talking through fitness, right? Because I gave him a bunch of advice through fitness. If I message them saying, hey, check out my demo. Oh, by the way, I know fitness. They probably wouldn't respond, right? But if I can give them advice about something that they need that's not related to music, so it's not like a red flag, I think that can kind of help. It also shows them like, hey, like, let me give you advice. Let me help you out. Then you can bring it up, right? A little bit later. I think that kind of is a unique thing. Is there anything that you know, especially when it comes to networking, whether it's in person or online or whatever, you know, that can be that can lower the path of resistance? I've talked about this before when it comes to blogs too. For example, that if let's say, so for example, recently I made a song called Magnus Carlsen about the famous chess player. Now, if I emailed 100 EDM blogs saying, can you feature my new dubstep song about Magnus Carlsen, I'm probably going to get very little to no replies, or they're going to be like, give me $100 and I'll post it, right? That's kind of the typical thing when it comes to blogs. But I then contacted 100 chess blogs, right? Because most chess sites don't get people hitting them up about music. And I got actually, it was kind of cool. I was featured on a bunch of different chess blogs and websites of people saying, hey, you know, the person who runs it being like, by the way, this electronic music producer made a song about Magnus Carlsen embodying his chess playing style and personality in musical form. Check it out, right? And it was a lot easier to get featured on a chess blog than a music blog because it's the path of least resistance, right? And good to hear he's talking about music and like he helped the guy out when it comes to music things. And I know this is like music knowledge coinciding with music knowledge, but I do think this kind of translates to anything else where is there any knowledge that you have to help somebody else out that can kind of create that path of least resistance to build a relationship in the future?
exchange for something else. So I mean, but that's fucking life. You know, you give money and you get money, or you get a service or whatever. So that was a really interesting thing. And then, you know, I just became the fucking ghost of Ground Loop Studios. I was always fucking there. I was just hanging out. I'm not making money there, and I'm putting, you know, my talents to work in terms of whatever. And then some guy from this band called Revenge of the Egg People. He had a CD out, and as far as I was concerned, these guys are fucking Motley Crue because they're selling music and they're printing CDs. It's like, holy shit, it's like manufactured. It's insane. You guys made it. And they said, hey, well, like what you're working on back there in the other room. And I'm like, just fucking around with some, my own shit, electronic music, whatever. And he's like, oh, well, we should do a remix, like a bonus track. And I was like, really? No way. Okay, I'll try it out. And and I took their song. It was actually good luck if you find this one online. It was my first remix that I've ever fucking done, and it's out somewhere, but I don't know if it ever made it online. But
I will say that when I posted this video we're watching right now, on YouTube, there were a bunch of people who commented the song link. So you can let me quickly find it on YouTube.
Fucking bonus points if you can find it. The band is called Revenge of the Egg People, and the song was called I'm Electric, and I remixed that, and that was the first body of work that I ever got done that made some kind of print. Now, mind you, it won't be a number one by a long shot. But anyway, that was really cool, right? So now all of a sudden it's like, wow, like I'm almost a fucking stand on my own 2 fucking feet artist. So fucking ergo, go home, upgrade the computer, get an Echo MIA, which was like the fucking boss of converters for me. Bought a couple cheap piece of shit gear, like I bought a fucking MC303, which was like my life savings, and it was fucking nuts, dude. And things evolved from there, and then when new software started coming out, like I said, like Fruity Loops comes out and shit like that, and Cubase comes out, and Ableton came out, and all that shit to me was just like a fucking joke, because you could just get in there, you know how it works, you know what this does what, and it's just fucking great. Thanks. Como Code just tweeted at me. It was the Karma K remix, because this was before Halcyon 44.1 kind of thing. Yeah, really weird. Is this it? Electric? I'm Electric, Karma K remix.
I think if I remember correctly, I think they put like Karma K, aka Deadmau5, to get like the SEO boost or whatever. Or the
holy shit, people found it. Yeah, oh my god, that's hilarious. It is online somehow. Original release date 2013? I don't think so, dude. Weird. Maybe they re-released it or something and said, hey, oh my god, what a dick move that would be. Oh, well, Deadmau5 is huge now. Let's put it out. I'll bet you that's what happened. I'm gonna call them. You fucking dicks. Now their album just goes fucking platinum. Fuckers. Anyway, it's pretty interesting how that happens. That's funny. And like I said, I bought a bit of shit and a bit of software and just got to fucking work. Oh my god, there it is. Let's listen. I haven't heard this. I haven't heard this track in at least 10 years. This should be interesting. Oh my god, everyone's like, found it! I found it! Oh, this video is unavailable. Hang on, maybe I got a wrong link. Dude, I can't. It says it's this video is not available. It's not like an amazing track. I mean, considering that was done with 0 fucking gear, the oldest fucking software imaginable. I remember I used Hammerhead to do the drum backing and just kept layering, and I didn't even use a fucking DAW really. I just kept cutting, like I did it in SoundForge, I think, where I had to cut loops and paste them and paste them and paste them over a period of time. Yeah, fuck, man. Why is it unavailable for me? Did it get pulled down already? It is on iTunes. That track is on my streaming service? Yeah, right. I'm Electric, Karma K remix. Dude, it doesn't even run this time, I guess. Quick time, slow time, anytime, today time. Nope. You know what? Maybe how do I not have it on my? Oh, because it's 100 years old. That would be why. Yeah, Hammerhead was like a drum loop software, and I used a lot of Rubber Duck too because those partners, those two pieces of software just went together like fucking mayonnaise and toothpaste. So good. It is on Tidal. Holy shit, it's on Tidal. Go figure. Let me see if I can get it to play. Play in Tidal. There we go.
Like that old school acid. Almost has like a Melbourne bounce acid feel to it, almost.
So bad!
Like the 1 and 3
Anyway.
punch.
You get the gist. Oh, that's embarrassing. That was my animals. Sorry. Yeah, I did. I got it. That's so funny. Anyway, and then, you know, software came out, blah, 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 learn that, and then discovered the invariable treasure chest that sidechain compression is, and made Faxing Berlin and called it a fucking day. That's my life story. More or less. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, you know, whenever I'm like introduced to, you know, like new artists and stuff like that, I mean, can you really blame me for being a little like kind of, it's cool. And I mean, I'm not to say I invented the fucking shit, because I know a lot of fucking dudes that have gone through the exact same fucking process. You know, some did better than others, but that's just the roll of fucking dice. That is life. And, you know, but just makes me a little bitter when, you know, hey guys, I got this vengeance kick and a wood block. I didn't go to school for this. That's cool. Like, well, neither did I, to be fair, but like, I mean, shit. When you listen to your old stuff, that's the picture. Where did the name Faxing Berlin come from? That came from Max Graham, believe it or not. I actually wanted to call the track something really embarrassingly stupid because I thought it was a cool track. Like, I kind of had an ear for what was out there and all that stuff, and I knew that that was like kind of different, same enough that it would do semi well like on the market. So I thought that I should give it some really fucking stupid as fuck name. So I was gonna call it like Drop the Bomb, the XX Extreme Mix, and
Sounds
like
like a
something
hot sauce.
really ugly. And me and Max Graham were talking on AIM at the time, and we were
Shout out
going
to
back
AIM.
and forth and trying to outdo
Just talked about AIM yesterday.
one another in the worst name possible for this track. So like somewhere in that conversation, he's like, hang on, I gotta go fax this stuff over to Berlin. And he took too long, so by the time he came back, before I uploaded it, I just called it Faxing Berlin and uploaded it. And then he came back and I was like, yeah, I just called it Faxing Berlin, fuck it. And he was like, oh, okay, whatever. That's cool. And then turns out like it's like one of these like kind of signature tracks of mine. I was like, I should have named it something else. So yeah. So that's how that all came to be.
All right. One experience, probably the best video I've ever filmed in my entire life. But yeah, you know, I will say, you know, I've watched this video, I think 3 or 4 times, to be honest, because I feel like I always get like a couple other cool tidbits of information, but super interesting hearing a story, you know, especially as like an OG in the scene, and especially doing a drinking game out of it and having some Coronas, excuse me. Cheers. Hopefully you found something interesting out of this video. Yep.